go. I like it. And aha! Oh, no, no. Don't show everything to everyone too early. It's all the fun.
Good times. Gotta love it. I think we're ready to rock and roll, Brandon.
Is it live?
Yes, sir.
Let's Amazing. Go. We're live. It's real.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all. I got hellos from, wow, we got the Swiss Alps, Italy. I guess it looks to me like we're picking up Europe in a big way, along with a little bit from northern Michigan. Hopefully, you all of the above have decent snow. I'm joining you from Denver. My name is Brandon Young. We have good snow. And if you like to ski and you're not getting good snow, because a lot of you aren't, I'm really sorry. You should come to Colorado. We got some good stuff. But joined today by Chris. Chris, you want to do a quick intro? And I'll give you a little rules of the road after you do intro.
Yeah, sure. Appreciate it, Brandon. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate everybody that's attending today. This is going to be a fun webinar. My name is Chris DeMars. I'm a senior developer advocate at DigitalOcean. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I am Salt and Burnham. If you're a Supernatural fan, you'll understand that reference. I love the paranormal world. So yeah, you can follow me right down there, Salt and Burnham on Twitter, and it will always be Twitter. So thanks, Brandon.
There we go. I appreciate you sticking to as an OG with Twitter, and I have no idea how you added that. I should do that. You're welcome to follow me. I will probably be somewhat less useful. I've my content will be more along trends, how digital or how generative AI is evolving, all the fun stuff. And I don't even know how Chris just did that, because I'll have to figure out when I hand it over to Chris. So anyway, thank you for joining us today. What we're going to take you through is a couple things. We're going to give you a good sense of how generative AI and DigitalOcean kind of work together, and in this case, Tabnine as a tool for helping developers obviously reach more productivity capabilities. It's a space that we know 65% of you will make a decision on a generative AI tool for code in the next 12 months. So front and center, we want to show you sort of the advantages, pluses, how to do it. Chris is going to give us a really awesome demo and walkthrough with my color commentary. But I'm going to set a little bit of context first, kind of in terms of where we're headed. Rules of the road for the day. We have comment section. If you are not familiar with StreamYard, on the right-hand side there, obviously love to know where y'all are joining us from. Thank you, and amazing diversity of countries and backgrounds, which is great. Please ask your questions, though. So I will be watching this kind of on the right. So if you see me going back and forth, of course, I have two screens. So presentation obviously going, but also on the right, I'll be watching those questions. I like to treat them interactively. In a perfect world, we could be sitting with the 1,000+ of you that have registered, because honestly, it's way more fun to have humans and interact with y'all. But since we can't do that and reach in all the places, you're going to have to do me a favor and ask the questions to keep me engaged. So anyhow, let's jump in, set a little bit of context in terms of where you are. So a little bit just for those of you, most of you know clearly who DigitalOcean is, because like as developers, they're the place we all started. They're the place that we all have droplets. We all have the history of the fun of our first droplet. So I'm going to assume that's good, although Chris can add some context, but it's a great place to build, run, and manage your applications. Not necessarily as many people are quite as familiar with Tabnine, but we're the first ones to create AI for coding. Particularly leveraging generative AI. Been at it 8 years, been doing generative AI for 5 years. It's kind of nice not to have to describe how we do it anymore, although we will get into that a little today. Used by over 1 million developers and thousands of companies, all sorts of IDs, etc. And for context, just a little bit of what generative AI helps. So Tabnine interacts and historically helps in kind of any place inside of the software development lifecycle. So I'll break that into some details so you kind of understand it. But why does it matter? These are the places, for context, this is the places that a developer spends their time. So let's just bring this super contextually to a developer, or if you're a team lead where your developer spends their time. This is on average, clearly varies a little bit. So for senior devs, you're going to spend some more time in the bug fixing and reviewing code percentages. But on average, this is a bit of where people spend their time. Why does it matter? Keep these in mind, and I'll kind of highlight these as Chris goes through his demo. What we're seeing is generative AI and Tabnine will touch almost every one of these in one way or another in a way to really help you be more productive. Again, Tabnine is designed as an assistant to help you do what you're already doing well, discover what your company is doing, best practices better than it did before, but it is to enable you. Little bit of where we are in this adoption cycle. Again, I live and breathe this every day. So let's get some basic data and facts out there. On average, we're seeing 45% time saved in creating, writing code, 30% more tasks are completed at high complexity. So again, this is not just addressing simple needs, albeit that's really important, and you'll see how that fits, but also starting to really address some of the most complex requirements. Lots of savings. And again, I think the number probably in the lower right, these are all pulled from McKinsey, GBK Collective. These are not my numbers. They're from detailed studies. But the aspect just for everyone here is if you aren't using generative AI for coding, 78% of you are going to do in the next 3 years. And again, our most recent number says 65% in the next year. So if it's not yours already, it will. A little bit of today, my goal, hopefully, and I'm just going to take side note here for a sec, come right back. My goal is just to give you framework. The world, we tend to spend far too much time, black, white, good, evil, all that kind of fun stuff. The truth of the matter is I land in a world that I believe everything is really a trade-off. And so what's the goal today? Just be direct, honest, forward about the trade-offs you're going to make in terms of the choices as you adopt these technologies. So we're going to talk today, again, quite a bit about generative AI for code, but I will also try and give you some frameworks to think about how generative AI is applied both to you individually and to you as an organization. So with that said, a couple other things here in terms of the space. In terms of the most recent Stack Overflow survey, a few months old, 2-3 months old, where are people and what are people using in this space? 2 players. So I'm just going to be blunt. It's GitHub Copilot and Tabnine are the two places that developers are using these tools, and both have strengths and weaknesses, trade-offs. So we'll go through a little bit on that with a primary focus in helping you make some decisions if that's the one you need to make, or as you look forward to generative AI, how to think about it. The other aspect that sort of came down, and I luckily picked this up for Oleg, Doges. I'm looking across from all over, all of our European friends. You may have picked up about 10 days ago, the EU has a new AI landmark law. As is familiar with the rest of the world, we all operate from a data security standpoint under something called GDPR, driven by the EU. This may not. I am not a lawyer, so please do not take anything I say as your facts taken to your lawyer. But this data is something we expected and sort of the first move in regulating what AI does or doesn't need to be. The key pieces out of here is what they're focused on is for our conversation today, what's in the models, what code's in the models. And their statement is it's really important that it doesn't have copyrighted code. We'll get into that a little more, but this is super relevant to kind of the conversations we're going to have. So wanted to keep everyone up to speed. So let's do some framing a little bit on where we've been and where we're going. And this will help a bit. So when Chris does a demo, you'll see where it goes. Historically, for the up until probably about 6 months ago, this really was AI assisted coding. So think I'm writing code, it's going to help me complete the code, it's going to be another code completion, comment to code. I think that was clearly the primary place it's operated, and it was definitely the place that Tabnine, we cut our teeth. That's where we started. That we saw it wrote roughly 30 to 40% of developers new code, not real good. That wasn't as strong as code review, that kind of stuff, and we'll get into how it's evolved. But on average, that translated to about a 20% productivity. Data for you, I always think that it's interesting that people throw out numbers. The numbers I'm going to hone in on, that I'm going to focus on, and I'm going to optimize to are going to be your developer productivity, right? So writing an amount of code is interesting. What we really want to know is what is that base productivity level that's helping you do some tasks that you offload tasks that you have to do anyway. Hint, testing, unit testing. We'll see that. There are unit testers. I'm sorry if you're a unit tester and you do that all the day, but most of us are terrible at doing our unit tests. Huge productivity lift. So AI assisted coding was where it was been. I think today we really sit solidly in this AI assisted software development, which covers coding, code review, code explanation, debugging, testing, and you'll see a chunk of that kind of during the demo. What we're seeing on that is that productivity level, instead of being 20%, is really increases at 50%. Another way of saying that it doubles productivity. Clearly, some of this is going to move more and more towards being able to trust the AI as a part of the development process. And so we see that in years coming for that to continue to sort of evolve. I will go out on a limb and say autonomous writing of code is probably a long ways off. And other thing, very important, generative AI for code, super useful tool. It produces quite a bit more code, which means you better have your pipelines and everything else in order. So if you're not familiar with the DORA metrics, you're not familiar with best DevOps practices, please make sure you're implementing those at least in parallel, if not before adding a whole lot more AI code. So just a note to everyone. A little visual, just left to right idea, again, to kind of bring this to visual view. Historically, AI assisted coding, really an AI assistant. In this case, my CTO has a robot unicorn. I don't know why. So if you have a question on that one, I can't answer why it's a robot unicorn. It just looks cool. This is kind of where we had historically been. And in terms of where today, we're really at that top level where we're seeing, and you're going to see this kind of across the board, lots of AI assistant toolings helping you at different places through the life cycle. Now, there's kind of two ways to view this, right? There could be an individual or a different AI tool for each stage of the life cycle. I think we're going to see that initially is what we're kind of seeing right now. Over time, however, there is significant value in understanding all of what's going on. And so we think at Tabnine that this is going to evolve to a singular, or at least very few, one or two AI tools that help you across that whole life cycle, right? Again, we're talking out 18 months, 2 years kind of time that starts evolving. Right now, you're seeing it more in stage by stage in the development process. Cool. Let me talk a little bit about where this is accelerating adoption. So bring it down brass tacks. This is really now that we have chat capability. So think the ability to interact not just with the code as you're writing it, which is very important, and I will note is actually this continues to be the majority of completions and work done with Tabnine and these tools is in line as you're writing code. That's still the vast majority, but a lot more being seen on questions of unit testing. How do I do a Kafka stream? Questions that are useful but do require context. So this is kind of the questions and the answers in terms of where we're seeing. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a head up before we demo. So let's think about, we'll get into the pieces of how this actually orchestrates. But as you watch it, I want you to understand kind of what you're seeing. Context is king, or data is king in terms of making these useful to you. So there's a couple different aspects or levels of context that you can pick up, right? Context at the initial basic level is context for Chris or for me as individual developers. You will see that Tabnine optimizes to you individually because you're writing something different than the developer next to you in an organization, or obviously if you're an individual developer, it's your world. It does that by understanding exactly what's happening on your machine at any time and building you an LLM locally on your laptop. So just for context, if you leverage Tabnine and you find that your memory and your CPUs are higher, that's because you yourself are running a 2 to 5 billion parameter LLM that is your custom LLM. So anyhow, just so you have context. That's basic context. Think of that as individual, what I'm coding on a daily basis. The next level up is connection. So this is looking at context that comes from a shared repository or your Jira instance. This is data that's interesting to the entire, to a team or an organization. and has not only your code base, so that's how you write code, because let's be honest, your crufty Java is not useful to someone else, but it is the holy grail to you. And it's important that you're able, that it understands that is done through connection or understanding contextualization, again, on your organization's data. And then the next two levels come from ideas of coaching. So maybe you have best practices you want followed. Hey, when we write a maps API, we're doing a maps call, this is exactly how we run that function. That function is always going to be using MapQuest. You might need to migrate if it's MapQuest, but we always use MapQuest instead of, say, Google Maps. Chris is just nodding. He's like, why you got to do that? Yes, I brought up MapQuest. I can come with other great examples, and I will use them judiciously throughout the conversation.
You're bringing up the old school for me.
I know,
remember
it's
back in the day when I'd have to like drive to a concert venue that wasn't in Michigan. I'd do MapQuest it there and then MapQuest it back and then flip through things while I'm trying to drive.
paper, yes. So yes, Chris will remember this, and if any of you don't know what we're talking about, it was just entertainment for us, but if you know, you'll understand. Anyhow, but this coaching is the next level of where context. So this is saying, let's be blunt, Brandon should not be coding much of your code base. However, you have a very good developer, say like Chris, and you want to run the best practices for a new developer, not just that they know how to code, but they know how to code the way Chris and the company has already instantiated. So that's the idea of coaching. So each one of these are customizations. We can have long conversations on this, but I want you to understand this is where we take these large language models that are generally interesting, generally purpose and useful, and make them more and more useful to either an individual on what you're working on, a team on what they're working on, or even an entire organization with best practices. So that's a little bit of this. Today, you're going to see predominantly, and I'll highlight as Chris goes through it, most of the context, because that's the piece you interact with the most often. But to that, I'm going to stop sharing. Hold on. And stop screen. We're going to hand it over to Chris for demos so that you have some sense of how this fits into your world. And I just might note, while I appreciate the encouragement in the comments, I haven't gotten a question, so let's get to it. Chris, you're up. I'm going to go on mute for a sec. No, actually, I won't go on mute because no one's here.
Awesome.
I'll just add commentary. So the
Sweet.
world is yours, and if anyone has questions, add them. We'll get to stuff later, so if there's things you want to hear, feel free to ask them there, and we will jump in. Chris, cool. It is all yours, my friend.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate it a lot. I also might be switching eyesight back and forth because I am also on two monitors. So I just wanted to preface with that. Once again, I appreciate everybody for joining the webinar today. We are really stoked and excited to have you here. Hopefully everybody walks away learning something. I hope you walk away. I know Brandon does and the whole team behind this. In this demo, it's going to try to be a quicker demo. I don't want to take too long because Brandon has a lot of great information still left in slides. But this demo is going to show.
You don't want slides. You guys want demos. Look, Chris, have fun.
Well,
everyone here wants to see the demo. Let's be honest. We want to see it real. I'll try and keep mine to a minimum.
I had to light some incense this morning and some Palo Santo to get the live coding vibes going on a positive note because we all know how that works. And as a conference speaker,
Do you need some music to go? Do you need some pump you up, like a little AC/DC for the like I bring my son in for soccer?
I should have some come in right in this.
Okay,
in this,
good.
Earbud,
if you need anything, let me know. I'll be your DJ. I'm terrible at it, but I'm willing to do it for you, Chris.
I appreciate that, Brandon. Much love, much love. So this demo, I'm going to run through how to get started with Tabnine, set up a very, very small structured Vite project using React. Just adding a couple components that are generated with Tabnine, pushing that up to GitHub, and then being able to deploy that static site from DO. So I'll try to keep it to a minimum, but here we go. So if you look, I'm in VS Code right now. I'm in a demos directory that's in my documents, and if you check, I'm going to be running some Linux commands. LS stands for list, so listing files and directories. There's nothing in there at the moment, which is great, but I want to be in that demos directory. But first things first, I have to install Tabnine. So I'm using VS Code. That's my code editor of choice. Your mileage may vary. Tabnine has integrations for various code editors and IDEs.
We're very flexible. So this is a good one. Chris, you're exactly where most, but this, obviously, you can look at the breakout, but we do support Vim and all sorts of other fun historical ones. So we're agnostic. Mileage does vary, as Chris said, so just highlight. It does vary. There's things that Tabnine can do in say, VS Code, JetBrains, and some of the more Eclipse that it can't do in others just because of what the IDE offers. So mileage varies. Chris, you're good to go. But you're
Awesome.
not in dark mode. I'm not sure.
I am not. So I'm glad you bring that up. The reason I'm not in dark mode, I'm a web accessibility advocate. I've actually built a
Thank
career
you.
on web. I built a
And
career on
that's
web
true. Dark
accessibility.
is terrible. Dark is terrible. I hadn't thought about
anytime
that.
I do webinars or I do live coding demos and conference talks, I always use light mode because it's more, it brings more contrast to the experience and for people viewing it. So I always try to be
Thank you, Chris.
cognizant of
I
that.
need to change the way I do stuff.
Yep, I always try to be cognizant of that
That's really
and
good.
use light mode.
I'd missed that. Thank you.
So, yep, hey, no problem. That's what I'm here for. We're here to make the community a better place and be, try to make inclusive and accessible experiences. So first things first, like I was saying, we need to install Tabnine. So if you're in VS Code, yes, I am. I did put the Explorer on the right side. I know. It took me a long time, but I finally did it. So I have it over here. We're going to open up the extensions, and then we're just going to type in Tabnine. Tabnine will pop up right away. You can give it a read through if you want. Check it out. Really, really great stuff. So we're going to install this in VS Code. You probably can go to the Visual Studio Code marketplace as well. But if you already have VS Code open, doing it this way is probably the quickest. So we're going to install it. It's going to install it globally. Awesome. We are ready to rock and roll. So I'm going to get out of that. I'm going to go to clear this out. So back to the demos. We don't have anything in this directory. I'm going to go down here to the Tabnine extension. And now we're presented with the Tabnine chat. There's a lot of great things. This will take you to the docs, the Tabnine docs, help you out to learn more about what Tabnine can do. But we're going to set up a Vite project using React. Just like I was saying, a small sample, just structure to scaffold out a project. So then you can take that and then start working with that and making all of the customizations that you or your team needs to make. But this will get you off the ground and up and running. So what do we need to do to start a Vite project? Well, I personally can't always remember NPM commands and NPX commands or yarn or whatever your flavor of choice is for your package manager, right? So what I'm going to do is I am going to write a command, and I'm going to say, and you want to be as specific as you can when using Tabnine. You don't want to just ask a generic prompt. You want to be as specific as possible so the model can fully understand the context and give you the best possible answer. So I am going to say, what is the correct, if I can spell, NPM create latest command to scaffold out a Vite project? Question mark. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to wait for Tabnine to give me the answer. Awesome. So it's letting us know what it is. You can insert this. You can copy this. You can run it. And then you can get other follow-up prompts here as well. If your train of thought is moving that way, great. You can start keep that train of thought going. So I am going to copy this command. And then I am going to just kind of swing this down a little bit. The reason I have two terminals open in VS Code is one is going to be running the app, and the other terminal is where I'm going to be doing all of my Git work. I do also want to preface, all of my Git commands are aliased, so I don't run git add, spelled out. I don't run git commit -m spelled out or git push. I have everything aliased to GA or GC or GPS. Just makes it faster on me. If anybody wants to alias their Git commands, I do have a repo with .files. Definitely hit me up on Twitter. It was Salt and Burnham on Twitter. I can share that .files repo with you if you want to alias your own Git commands. So I am going to paste this command. It's going to be npm create Vite at latest. So it's going to pull the latest version of Vite, and then it's going to automatically, by default, give you the directory of my Vite app. And you can change this to whatever you want, but let's just keep it at my Vite app. We're going to hit enter. Now Vite is going to ask us what kind of JavaScript framework or SPA that we want to use, right? So we can do this in vanilla JS, we can do Vue, React, Preact, we can do Lit, we can do Svelte, Solid, Quick, others. So we're just going to choose React, and we were presented with TypeScript, JavaScript. You could do this with Remix. We're just going to use JavaScript. So it'll just be JSX across the board. Awesome. So now, if we can check to see if this was created, it was. We run the ls command. We can cd into that. Cd is change directory. So we can change directories into my -Vite app. We can run npm I or npm install to install the packages in the node modules. Good times, good times. Awesome, 103 packages. And then we can run npm run dev. And then we should be able to click on this, take this, and we can, there we go. We have the project started in Vite. We're going to go through here and we're going to change a few things though. We're going to remove some things that we don't need. We're also going to initialize a Git repo. So if you were to run a Git status right now, it's going to say there's not a Git repository or a GS. That's what I have that aliased at. In my opinion, Git status is one of the most important Git commands to run. It keeps you in check with what is happening, what is going on, what's in your working directory, what needs to be added or committed or pushed. So we're going to run a git init to initialize a Git repo. Clear. So now we know that there is a Git repository started within this project locally, and you can see right here the branch is master. We're going to change that to main once we start moving through the Git process. So if we run the Git status again, you'll see that we're on branch master. Let me move into the demo here. My Vite app. Cool. Clear. And then we're going to, let's just do git add, git commit -m. Let me hide this. Oops. Initial commit. Well, actually, you know what? Let me go back. Let's do this again. Don't ever do this. Never RM. Yeah. We're going to cd back into this. And then we're going to run it. Okay. So then we're going to run git init in here in my Vite app. There we go. Let me run a git status. We'll see all of these files and folders need to be added. We're going to run a GA all, git commit -m. Make sure that you always do the -m flag, or VS Code will throw you into Vim or Nano, and then we all have fun doing that. We're going to do initial commit, trying to get out of there. Awesome. So we can see that we have all these new files that need to be committed. So GC -m. I think we did this, but we're good. That's okay. Should be okay. All right. So we have all this. We can remove a lot of this stuff from here. If we go into app.jsx, we don't need these SVGs. We don't need this count. We can remove all of this information right here.
For context, Tabnine now locally is starting to look at whatever Chris is working on and attempting to understand contextually, not just from its initial model that's trained to fully permissive open source, but kind of to the questions Bruce. It's now starting to go, what patterns am I seeing in terms of how Chris is operating, and what files does he have, right? So it's your local, it's really your local RAG, or we'll get into that. Your local RAG right now is learning from what Chris is doing, so that as he does it in the future, the way he names things and that kind of stuff, it continues to get better. So,
can everybody see my browser, or is it just VS Code?
I see just VS Code.
All right, let me stop sharing and then present again. Give me 1 second. All right, how's that? VS Code, we good?
Oh, my Vite app. It's there.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect.
VS Code.
Okay,
and
so
see both. Yeah, you're good.
awesome. So what we're seeing right now is I removed a bunch of code that we didn't really need just to show the H1, the My Vite app. So I'm going to go into, I'm going to change the background color real quick to white, and I'm going to change, or I'm going to change the color of the text there. So there we go. My Vite app, or My Vite app. All right, so in this app, what I want to do, I want to add a header. I definitely want to add a footer, and the header is going to have some links. The main section is going to have just a couple paragraphs as well as this H1. And then the footer, we just want to have, let's say, to start off, we just want a copyright symbol with the year and my name. So we're going to go into Tabnine, and I'm going to ask Tabnine, how do I write a semantic header component with a nav element and 3 links in React?
While you're seeing this, just so people understand, there's a local LLM running on your laptop for quick, fast, custom suggestions. The one that Chris just asked here is actually a separate LLM that Tabnine uses for the chat interface, and there's another one, and that's on a server. So you're going to need to run a server given its size. So we'll get a little bit in architecture, but just understand this: LLMs are purpose fit for speed, suggestion, customization, all of those. Tabnine uses different ones for different use cases, and we're going to touch. You're going to see all of them being used. I'll transfer to highlight when it shows up, but you'll note the speed of the 2 suggestions will be drastically different. The one inline will be very fast and smaller and customized to Chris. The one on the right is a model that is a much larger model, not customized to Chris. Can be customized, but in this case, not to any of Chris's use cases. Trained just on fully permissive open source. Just that question came up, Chris, so I'm gonna.
Cool. Appreciate it, Brandon.
Yep.
So yeah, so we have the generated code, and I'm going to modify this a little bit. But for now, we're going to go into, we don't need the assets, we can delete that. Move to trash. In the source, I'm going to create a new folder called components, which is kind of the standard practice for building out your React projects. I'm going to add a new file. We're going to call it header.jsx. And then I'm going to paste what Tabnine gave me. I'm going to remove that. We don't need this because we're not going to be sending up anything that's interactive at the moment. So we can get rid of a lot of this stuff here and just get a base header with a nav element, an unordered list with list items, and anchor tags.
Chris, I think the team says if you could zoom in one level,
Sure
perhaps would be okay.
How's that?
That's good. You keep going. I'll keep. I'll just
Awesome.
keep reading comments. You're doing great.
Perfect. And then we can get rid of this. And then we're going to go over here, and then we are going to, we're going to put this in, we're going to import it. And then up here, import header from components header, save. And then we have just a basic header, right? It's just links. There's no CSS. There's no styling to it at all. It's just home, about, contact. We don't have any routing set up. If you want to set up routing, that is going to be an architectural decision for your team. Cool. So now we have a semantic header up and running. Great. Well, now I want to put in a footer, right? So let's go back to tab 9. And I like asking in the chat because I love to see what the chat tells me. How do I create a semantic footer in React with a HTML copyright entity symbol the date, and my name. So how do I create a semantic footer in React with an HTML copyright entity? If I can spell.
Probably actually, as it turns out, won't have to spell real well, as long as you're like, that'll make sense to it. This is prompt engineering. So some things you all may hear. Writing good prompts to get a response back, particularly in the chat kind of interfaces. I'm sure you have all heard about it. It's something that it's a skill set that we're all going to have to build a little. So from a communication standpoint, it's super helpful when it has that kind of detail.
Let me do this one again. That was wonky. How do I create a semantic footer in React with a copyright symbol, the current date, and my name? Perfect. So
quick note here,
yeah.
Slightly off, you can see sometimes you have to ask something twice. So be kind of the machine, just for reference. Sometimes try it twice, which is, that was odd. I just acknowledged what you saw. Occasionally happens. You're either something, it picks up something and it takes a different path down the tree. Sometimes just give it a second go, just like a human. Ask it twice. Sometimes the second time it'll get a little more. But continue. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate that. So yeah, so we have the footer that was generated through Tabnine. This is how you would add it. It shows you how you would add it, and then it will let you. It will tell you, depending on the prompt, what it looks like with the generated HTML. So we can copy this. We're going to create another component, footer.jsx, and then we're going to paste. And then function footer return, we're going to get rid of this right here. We are going to add copy. And then we're also going to add a space to space this out. It's ampersand NBSP. And then I'm going to put my name right here. Save that. And then we'll have to import this. Footer. Save that. And then import footer. Perfect. Oh no, what's it telling us? Oh, let's probably get rid of this. There we go. Perfect. So now we have the header with the navigation. We have an H1 in the main part of the application, and then we have the footer. Now I want to add a couple paragraphs just to the main section. So let's go back to tab 9, and we're just going to use some lorem ipsum. How do I write out 3 paragraphs in React using lorem ipsum? Scroll down. This could be, it's going to take a second because it's generating all of that lorem. But this is great because then we're going to move into the app. And then I'm going to scroll over to here. That's all right if we get that extra div in there. We'll just delete it. Delete that div. Save. And there we go. We got 3 paragraphs that were generated for us. Now what I want to do is I want to go back over to index.css. There's a lot of stuff in here that we don't need because this all came with the boilerplate. We don't have an H2. We do have that. Save. And then we are going to get rid of place item center. We're going to do flex direction column. We are going to do justify content center, align item center. We're going to do a max width of 80%. This should tighten it up a little bit. Margin 0 auto. And then get rid of some of this. And we don't need the text align center. There we go. So now we have a scaffolded out project. It didn't take us that long to do it. We have the header with the nav element, with the links. We have an H1, we have 3 paragraphs of text, and then we have a footer. This is a great base starting project. If you're using Vite for React, if you're doing Vue, anything like that, this is great to see. So now we're going to add everything, and I don't suggest you add everything. This is just for the demo. I personally, when I am working on a project, I like to add things bit by bit so I can keep things separated. Adds rest of the code to code base. Now, if I were to do a git push, it's not going to let me because we haven't set up the remote. So if I go over here, I already set up the Tabnine Vite demo repository. All I'm going to do is come down here to, let me bump that up a little bit. I'm going to come down here to this option. I'm pushing in an existing repository. What this is going to do, it's going to add the remote origin to my GitHub. It's going to change the branch name to main, and then it's going to push all of that code up to main. So I'm going to copy that, go back to my terminal, paste, hit enter, run a git status, git add all, GC, I hope this worked, GPS. There we go. Now you can see we're on branch main. Your branch is up to date with origin master and nothing to commit. Working tree clean. If we go back, our application is still running. Nothing is broken. Great. So that piece is done. Let's hop over to app platform in DO. We're going to create a project. So if you wanted to deploy this to DO, we're going to create a new project. We're just going to call it Tabnine Vite demo. Let me bump this up so everybody can see it a little bit. We're going to give it a little description. Tabnine Vite demo with friends. Select the purpose. We're going to say it's a website or blog. We're going to create the project. We can move resources into it or we can skip this. What we're going to do is we want to deploy our web app. So we have different providers, GitHub, GitLab, the container registry, Docker Hub. In this example, we're going to be using GitHub. You're going to connect your GitHub or your organization's GitHub to the app platform. I'm going to type in Tabnine Vite demo to search for the repo. I'm going to leave everything as it is by default. The branch is going to be main. The source directory is optional. Keep auto deploy checked. Hit next. It's going to start creating some things. You can see right here, this says web service. We want to change this from web service to static site. So if you're just deploying a static site without any server-side rendering or anything like that, and it's just going to be HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you're going to want to change this. So we're going to edit the resource type. And we're going to change that to static site. We're going to save it. We're going to hit back. Everything looks good. Static site. Next. Everything looks good here in your environment variables. Everything looks good there. Perfect. We're going to create the resources. This is going to take us to the build. So you have an overview. You can have insights here. Activity, your runtime logs, console settings. We're going to check out the build logs. And this might take a second. We're going to watch it build. It's kind of like installing node modules. You know what I mean? I mean, Brandon, it's kind of like watching water boil.
It is. We're going to keep moving through it. And actually, while it's water boiling, you're hit on a question. So if you don't mind, I'm going to just interject a little bit DJ had a question sort of above as he's in terms of deploying, not want to do a separate Jenkins server. Says, how can I quickly do the build, test, and deploy on a specific release branch to the dev environment? And curious if that's something you're familiar with. So I thought that might be something fun on the DO platform. I felt underqualified to 100% answer.
That is a great question for one. And I love the chat about release branches and feature branches as somebody who likes the feature flag world. I think, and I'm not totally sure, this would be a great question for Discord. You can join our Discord. We have an open community Discord. I think you might have to specify the branch in the config. But hit me up on Twitter, hit me up on Discord, and we can have that conversation. And if I can't figure it out, I will definitely direct you to somebody that does know.
Thanks. Yeah, that's a popular direction that people are moving with all the feature flags and stuff. So not a surprise, and yes, efficient, but visible is useful. So yeah,
but definitely, I'm very open to chat with everybody. I love community. I want to build the most thriving community that we can. So definitely hit me up. Like I said, on Twitter, DM me, Salt and Burnham, or join our Discord. We have a link to our Discord too that we can put up. And then we'll also have a link to
Lisa helped us out. So
okay.
Shout out to Lisa. Thank you for the help.
Awesome. Appreciate that so much. So yeah, okay, great. This is awesome. We went live at 10:46 Eastern time. I'm Eastern. I'm in the Metro Detroit area. We can check out our build logs. The build was complete. We are ready to go. No issues, deployed successfully. We have a lot of meta information down here, the different events that happened, the source, the author, the time, the build minutes, and we have a generated URL that we can use here to check it out. Boom, and there we go. We have plankton-app-dazir.ondigitalocean.app, and our app is live out there for the public. And then if you wanted to do anything with custom domains, that option is always available, but this can get you up and running. So that is that. Thank you so much for joining the webinar, sticking around for the demo. I appreciate it, Brandon, and I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, so your questions had come in live. So there's a couple I have held on only because I had promised that they will be useful. Entire screen. Let's grab that one. But yeah, so I'm switching to a little bit, Chris. I still can kind of see questions, but I might be a little slower. So it's your turn. You can answer questions as best you can, but don't hesitate to just highlight them as they come through. I want to spend a little time to So there's a couple points here that I hopefully will illustrate trade-offs. So you'll hit some things on trade-offs, and I just want to go ahead and break it apart. A couple things on a generative AI, and I'm going to use this as a framework in terms of how you think of anything in the generative AI space. There's a UI UX layer, there's a model layer, and then there's context, also known as the data layer. Each one has significant effects on one another. I'm going to cover all three here and what those trade-offs are that you might go through. So first one, UI UX. So we hit a little bit on this, some things I answered from the standpoint. Tabnine at any one time is running with 3 LLMs, could be 4 or 5. So it is all about getting the right suggestion, the right user at the right time in the right place, right? So that's the aspect that, as it turns out, is the most difficult. Now, in our space, in the area of coding, what we've seen is the vast majority is an API call to a large language model. That's not in and of itself good nor bad. It is simply that one LLM is not as good as might be purpose fit for one use case, fast coding. One might be for longer suggestions like chat. Tabnine, and we'll just highlight, we do build our own models. We do that because of regulatory and because how we grew up. So we've always built these because no one had them. But Tabnine itself is not a model company. So don't think of Tabnine as, an AI21 or an Anthropic or a Cohere. We use fully permissive open source models and we customize them. And we'll get to the models in a sec. What I want to really highlight here is in terms of what you get in suggestion to a developer has a lot to do with what is the pre and post processing, the RAG, all the other aspects wrapped around it. So on any one given suggestion, you could throw it out to a bunch of different ones, to different LLMs. Someone had made that comment. Absolutely, you can. But the thing is, you need it in the right place, right time, and with the right context. everything we've seen today is vanilla, really. We haven't got any specific context layers or anything. This is how Tabnine uses it. We take a universal model, we fine tune, we use RAG, we're going to use vector databases, a lot of ways to customize that to get you the right thing at the right time. So this is a much longer conversation. Anyone that really wants to geek out on it, like, let us know. I'm happy to dig into that with you. All of this is designed, though, to be clear. A lot of the customization takes some more effort, but higher value in an organization. So as a developer, individual developer, the local RAG is probably what you need. But as you get into a larger organization with a different custom code base, that becomes something that customization matters. And that comes in the form of UI UX with RAG, with vector databases, et cetera. And it comes with how we get the right suggestion at the right time. Models, because everyone was talking about it. So let me be super clear on this. We're going to talk a little bit of the models, but I'll be clear how Tabnine does it. This is a tree you're looking at. This is just a fun tree illustrating all the models, and it's an old one, and now the tree's bigger with more branches and all that kind of stuff. Trade-offs that you make. So here's trade-offs, right? So there's two models you can leverage. You can leverage open models or closed source models. Closed source models are coming out of the large platform providers for a reason that the large platform providers, Microsoft, Google, want to run more workloads on their platform, which is great. And they have data that they put into it. But an open versus a closed model, Tabnine always operates with open models. That's because we need to know how they work, and we need to let customers want to be able to run these models in their own environment. As an enterprise, again, that's speaking more of a larger organization, wants to run and control all of what lives and breathes and is a part of them. The second question you have on a model has to do with single versus multimodal. A GPT model, many of these models are multimodal, meaning they can do a picture or they can do code. They can translate Cardi B into Shakespeare or vice versa. Sweet, that's awesome, that's great. Tabnine only focuses on code. So the fact that we're a single focus model means that we have much smaller models, hence we're getting the size, than a large general purpose model. That is not good nor bad. A large general purpose model can take on a lot of really inane random questions and answer them, okay. A custom model or a smaller model is purpose fit. So it will work great for better for the purpose, less useful for a not purpose fit situation. So that's an aspect, and that's one of the reasons Tabnine 6 was open, because we have focus models, not real wide ones. The last one is sort of size of the model, which we'll get, and the data training, which will translate to the other. The size of the model matters for two reasons. One, almost all of you are paying nothing for your model serving, or for the suggestions you ask from it or the API. Right now, we are in a land grab, which means the very large models are being served up with no interest or concern about the cost it takes to run them, and you're being subsidized in order for you to adopt their model. That's not good or bad, but eventually, as we all know, with Uber, Lyft, the cost changes and it has to work. Those large models require a lot of compute to serve them. They're not as fast. You'll know speed is trade-off, and then the cost to serve them is much, much higher. Also means by that size of model, you can't run a GPT-4 in your own data center. You can't customize or fine-tune GPT-4. Too big, too expensive, can't do it. So those are important trade-offs. It's why we've gone with smaller single open source models. The last thing about models you need to understand is the training data used. Tabnine takes a very, very strict view of what goes in the model. Only fully permissive open source code. And that's going to translate us into a little bit of data, and then I'll go into context. Why does that data matter? This is Machine Learning 101. Good data in, good data out. Bad data in, bad data out. Oracle, IBM, SAP data in, Oracle, IBM, SAP data out. Now, as an individual developer, that may not matter to you, in which case, guess what's going to be stronger? I'm going to be blunt. GitHub Copilot will be stronger. It is a larger model. It has seen a huge amount of proprietary data, and it's got unlimited resources to serve that up to you. Now, it won't be as fast. It's not going to be as customized. It's not going to have that aspect. So with some work, Tabnine is stronger, but by default, Copilot probably will have a stronger results back, as will others, because again, It's just simply the amount of data they've seen. We many times it's going to have, if you're in an organization, you may find Copilot initial trials like, wow, that knows me pretty well. There's a simple reason it knows you well. Your friend across the code behind you is using Copilot, and the default in Copilot when it was started was that you gave all of your data to Copilot to train because it needed the data to build a GPT-4 model, needed more data. The brilliant way to get more data is to get that data from millions of developers as the default to build into your model. That's a great technical decision, and that's why they have a really good model. The trade to that is model stronger, model bigger, but code that comes out of it can come from anywhere that I've named: proprietary, copyright, other sources. Again, you need to weigh which is more important to you, what that trade-off is, right? If you're a full Microsoft shop and you want to do that, it might be a good shop. If you really care about, need to run it yourself, if you're a bank, need to customize it, then maybe Tabnine's a better offer. Good trade-offs to both. So that's the trade-off I think everyone should just, look at when you're making the decision. The last one, which takes work, right? Takes some engagement, and Chris showed a little bit about this, is context. So the model itself is one aspect. Then the data, as I talked about, is the really important part. So no context. We had a little bit of that. We didn't go no context. We had limited context, or the left-hand side is where Chris operated today, right? But as you use it more or you share your code base, build a custom model, etc., as you go further to the right, its suggestions become more and more customized. It also becomes less useful or completely useless to someone else. So again, one trade-off, and as we kind of finish up here, I think this is sort of a good place to sort of, hey, where does this go, since we've a lot of questions around models. I think what we're going to see is this. Models right now today are all about who has the biggest model that can solve the most random problems with almost no prompts or understanding. That is an interesting place for where we sit. And I think there's a purpose fit for those. There's a reason for those. They work exact well. That's a Gemini style. That's an OpenAI. Useful. For purpose fit cases, in this case, code. Over time, we're going to get much more customized, and those use cases will become much, much stronger because they don't have to answer, by definition, they don't have data that's not related. So as we see this, we're going to see even more and more focused models, to where I think it will be very common, and we have customers that choose a specific model by a specific team in their organization. They may have an entire set of code models designed to be very, very purpose fit for the use case that you're going after. So I think last thing, just why now. We've talked to everyone a lot of adoption. Here's the data from us internally. Across all these areas, the purple on the right is where people spend time. Just to be clear, all the purple adds to 100%. So no magic there, just telling where people spend time. We are seeing code completion plus chat. We're seeing initial data suggesting that it's about a 58% productivity uplift. So again, kind of that 2x number has continued to be consistent both with our internal numbers and what we're seeing elsewhere. So we hit on a little bit. Last reason, though, these are the trade-offs. Tabnine's focus is on privacy, personalization, and protected, because we stick to strict licensing. That's our basis, and we like to, I think we offer a free version and a great place to get started. So the place to get started, though, is go to the marketplace in DigitalOcean. You have best pricing in the market for going through this route. So we set this up. We would love for you to deploy your applications, everything with and on DigitalOcean. The way you go, add yourself there. You'll get an email. So look for an email from the Tabnine team within the first 20 hours, even faster than that says, hey, welcome. And then you can add other teammates if you want. It could be just for you, but if you want to add other teammates, you can manage all those teammates then inside of the Tabnine interface to say, hey, I need to add Stacy, and I need to add Chris, and I need to add Robert. And all of those kind of come in and are managed and are part of your billing and everything holistically, directly through your DigitalOcean billing. So all designed to help you get started. And I appreciate it. I think we've sort of hit the end of our. I'm going to read some quick questions.
I got a couple questions for you, Brandon.
Perfect. Yeah, please, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. This one's from Claudio. Does Tabnine use Mistral AI or Llama open source models? The one you're calling the universal model that was in
Sure.
parens.
Yes, so we use fully permissive open source. So we will look at them. I'm not trying to be like overly cagey here by that, to be clear on this. We're constantly constantly looking at new ones. So the open source Gemma, the Llama 2 code, the Star Coder, we are constantly evaluating those and then using the best one. And we may switch that at a regular basis. If you're interested, happy to tell you. In fairness, I think Mistral might be what we're using right now. I should know. But again, that's the pattern. We'll look at all best open source, and then we'll go and deploy from there. And Claudio, I appreciate the notion that you can fine tune. It's not fine tuning; it's probably a RAG, but fine tuning would require that you can download that model. So again, RAG is a way to customize. It isn't fine tuning. So, but or if maybe you have more GPUs than I know about, but generally speaking, that's not how those are done.
I had one from Abu
Please.
Bakr too.
Sure.
How does Tabnine help testers, or how is it helpful for
Sure.
testers?
Yeah. So first off, writing unit tests. I think that's the first place, and we'll continue to help with more and more testing. Place I'd start with it is, hey, ask it in chat. Hey, write me unit test for this. Write a unit test that covers this use case. Really push it to help you there. That's the first place we see most people using it. And then on testing also, you can ask it, hey, is there any errors? What are the possible issues with the code? So highlighting the code and saying, hey, explain this code, or is there an issue in this code? It will certainly help you. It is not a be all end all. You still need you're driving. You're in the driver's seat. This is something to assist you, but hopefully that's a good starting spot.
Awesome. And then one more that I see from Abu Bakr as well.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain how Tabnine simplifies the management of microservices architecture for DevOps practitioners?
Sure. So I think in the short term, it certainly helps. I mean, from DevOps, I'm gonna just guess in here, like most when people say DevOps, are like, hey, I'm gonna spend a dump infrastructure's code. That is highly repeated. So in fairness, honestly, any LLMs by definition do Terraform fairly well. So you're kind of in a use case that's broadly very repeatable. Another from microservices aspect that gets to, give me a second on that. That goes into this idea of far right of customization. So one place is if you have more microservices, training code base of the entire organization or best practices would enable you then to use the microservices the way your enterprise does, right? So it starts suggesting, how do we do this? This kind of goes to the joke we had about Maps, which Maps API use. It's broader than that. Hey, what do we use at Acme Corporation for X, right? That customization allows you to get some really good insight into how you do and continue to repeat that. I want to be clear. Like I said before, though, good data in, good data out, bad data in, bad data out. The aspect that we run into most common on customization is going to be, do you know your code? Do you know your Jira instance? Do you know your data? This is no different than machine learning has ever been. So just, I'll tell you ahead of time, it's super powerful, but it does require you know what you're doing. Cool. And
Your
my
camera
is unplugged. That's very weird.
Ooh, at least it happened at the end, right?
I know. If I'm gonna
at least it happened at the beginning.
Yes. Hold on. Did I accidentally hit something?
Oh no.
I think we're good. And
we got one more question from Sumit.
Perfect. Sumit, what's up?
How do we train Tabnine our organization? How do we train Tabnine on our organization's coding conventions? So I'm assuming style guide, best practices, stuff like that.
That's perfect. That's part of our enterprise offering. So that would be something. Feel free to. We can support. So reach out to me. We can jump on and take you through what that entails. And honestly, it's just having some good data and a place. Depending on, we can run it on your behalf jointly. We can run that on behalf for you on like Paperspace. We can run it anywhere you would want. But again, it'll just be sort of what you already have for data. So on that, I please love to continue that conversation. The answer is yes, but we should go through the details so you get comfortable with it.
And that's the only question, only one that I saw left.
And I have a second camera just backing up, although the angle is not my best side. My better side is this side, and it only gets this side. But that's
I'm only good straight on. So
There you
One
go.
more question. One more
Sure,
question.
of course.
Is there only enterprise plan, or are there also is there also like a pro plan or other available options?
It's perfect. Yeah, actually, the offering on DigitalOcean is the Pro plan because it's designed for the vast majority of most of users. The enterprise plan comes where and we can host and use that and will with DigitalOcean. So both are there, but the one when you go to DigitalOcean's marketplace, the initial place we've started is the Pro plan, and the Pro plan you can add a bunch of other users. It isn't designed. The enterprise plan is for custom models in your own environment, high security, those kind of requirements. So happy to do that again on like Paperspace has some great GPUs as a spot we can jump in, but it isn't the default. So that would be just one. Hey, contact us. Happy to go through that.
Awesome. Well, I think we can close it out. If anybody has any questions, DO specific, or wants to chat with me, definitely follow me on Twitter at Sultan Burnham. Join our Discord. Brandon, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for this.
Thanks all. You stuck with us 5 extra minutes, so appreciate your all's
Nice.
time today and hope it was helpful. Thanks, Chris.
Have a great
Thanks for
day,
having
y'all.
me.
See you.